his pace on those Michelin soft tyres didn't look bad at all. Darren Binder then has picked himself up from what looked like a pretty heavy crash later, and you can see there some scuff marks on the left-hand side of his leathers. But you can understand, Lewis, while these practice start sessions are so important, the start's now becoming so key in MotoGP, and also, of course, the teams will be trying to get some information and data back when we come back here for the launch controls and how the track manages for that race in March 20th.
Yeah, absolutely. All sorts of system checks going on for these teams. There's so much to learn that you don't even think of when we go into a brand new circuit. And of course, this is the second of 3 days that they're going to have. They're going to have one more day to go tomorrow, and I think they're going to make the most of this, because we're still not sure what the weather's going to do. There were fears around lunchtime today that there was going to be a significant downpour. If you tuned in to our midday report from Jack Appleyard and Simon Crowfire live on social media earlier on, there was a big black cloud just in the background which looked like it was heading our way. Fortunately, it stayed away and we got some dry track time in. So yeah, they're keen to make the most of this, and as you mentioned, Fabio Quartararo will be looking to iron out some of the gremlins that almost put him in the pit wall yesterday afternoon. Yeah, there was also a pretty lively practice start, I think it's fair to say as well, for Japanese rider Taka Nakagami, who finished 15th on the standings today. There's Franco Morbidelli then. He's heading out as well to start his practice. There is his new crew chief, Patrick Primer, on the left-hand side there with the trusted clipboard. Patrick Primer, no stranger though to this MotoGP World Championship. He was a long-serving and very experienced Öhlins suspension technician, and he was partnering Jorge Lorenzo when Jorge won his 3 World Championships in MotoGP with Yamaha. So he does bring a lot of experience to the table in the Franco Morbidelli camp. I think a lot of people might have thought that Ramon Furcado was going to be moving over with Frankie for 2022, but not so. So Paolo Ciabatti there, you saw the Ducati Corsa sporting director keeping a close eye on this practice start session. The first man to launch away off the line is KTM rider Miguel Oliveira. KTM showing a really good signs of promise today, with Brad Binder at the top of the timesheets for so long. Andrea Dovizioso, well, every second will be valuable for him on that improving 2022 Wise-Star. And of course, he is going to get the same level of support as both Fabio Quartararo and Franco Morbidelli. And thankfully, Lewis, there we just saw a clean getaway for Fabio after the dramas of yesterday. Absolutely, a much welcome practice start for Fabio Quartararo. The key word being practice, so I think he'll be glad to get those gremlins out of the way. He won't want to make a start like that in Qatar, so clearly steps forward made. And yeah, I think what he probably learned from yesterday, we're seeing this from all the riders, none of them are parking over to the left-hand side, the rider's left, and pulling into all the dirty dust and sand and mud that's been blown on the track up against the pit wall. They're all very keen to stay on the racing line this time. You can see there Andrea Dovizioso, obviously late on in that session, was running quite a light fuel load, maybe in time attack mode, but he's just getting a little bit of a splash and dash to make sure he can get round this 4.3 kilometre Mandalika circuit for the practice start session. So the pit wall is pretty busy over there in Indonesia right now. There are the Pramac Ducati team, the factory Ducati Lenovo team as well, keeping a very close eye on what's happening out on circuit. Just pick up there in the background, that's of course Marc Marquez, flanked by Darren Binder. Excellent second day from significant injuries over the last couple of years. The 8 times world champion played it safe like so many did on those tricky conditions on day one, but he was much more to the fore today. Marc Marquez, second behind Luca Marini on the timesheets, and that new Honda launching away pretty well, Lewis, by the looks of it. It is, and Marc Marquez, I think he knows full well that the points aren't handed out until March the 6th in Qatar. So as you say, there was no real value, I suppose, for Marc Marquez to push the boat out too much. He more than anyone else, it's got to be in the back of his mind. I think you can only be human if it's in the back of your mind what's happened to him over the winter with the double vision that he suffered as a result of that training crash just before the Algarve Grand Prix at the end of last season. So when conditions are particularly sketchy and grip is particularly low, you can imagine Marc Marquez just wanting to leave a little bit of margin in his back pocket. And now with conditions picking up, he's decided to pick the pace up, and he's clearly looking in pretty good shape. And it's probably the best we've seen from this new Honda so far. I know Paul Espargaro was fastest yesterday, but I think conditions meant we could really scrap those lap times from yesterday. We're seeing a more representative picture today with lap times much closer to what we're expecting, and Marc Marquez is right in the mix. Yeah, pretty good workout today for Marquez, both mind
and body. He did 74 laps, which is a fair old shift out of that Mandalika circuit. As a bunch of riders, Polispargo there, that was a superb launch away on that new radical Honda RC213V. Not such a clean getaway yet again by Taka Nakagami. There's a few times last year where Nakagami seemed to struggle with the launch control and getting that satellite Honda off the line. Alex Rinder's crew chief there, Juan Casso.
It's quite a long run actually to the first corner here. As you can see, you pretty much see the exit to the final corner in the background here, and it is going to be a particularly key part of the Grand Prix when the first Indonesian Grand Prix for a quarter of a century takes place next month. It's a 507 metre main straight, but the grid is pretty much at the beginning of it. It's right at the beginning of the main straight, so it's a fairly long run down to the first corner. So yeah, if you are poorly off the line, you're just going to get swallowed up in pretty short order. It's not as if you can just jump straight on the brakes and banzai into turn one. You will get swallowed up. So it is key that if you are anywhere sensible on the grid here, you do get that start right, because you could ruin your race on lap one.
So what you're saying, Lewis, is we could have 5 or 6 Ducatis in the top 5 or 6 positions on lap one in Mandalika.
Every chance. We saw it as the people who remember the very first image of the 2021 season. We just saw a Ducati benefit, didn't we, into turn one as Jorge Martin came steaming through the field, as Marc Marquez does what Fabio Quartararo did yesterday, and you can see a graphic demonstration there of the dust and dirt offline. Marc Marquez kicking up plumes of dust as he headed off the line, not in the direction that he started.
Well, we know Marc Marquez loves a bit of dirt tracking when he's back home in Europe. Well, that was pretty spectacular, and not in a good way for Marc Marquez. Yeah, you can just see how dirty that left-hand side of the grid is there. They're going to have to get that cleaned up for the race in about 6 weeks' time. But what we do know, as Lewis just touched upon, recent history has shown that the Ducati launch device is probably the best one out there. We saw Yamaha make big improvements when they introduced theirs from about Mugello onwards last season, but the starts and the issue is as well that the Ducatis are really good over one lap pace, Lewis. We know that their bikes are good on a soft tyre, so you would not be surprised if there's maybe one race this year, a lockout of the first 2 rows from Ducati. That doesn't sound like an outlandish, crazy prediction. And with the way they are able to start and launch off the line, some riders that are on non-Ducatis this year might find the races quite difficult, particularly long, because it's a hard bike to overtake as well. They've got good braking performance and stability going into the corner. The engine and the acceleration, their electronic control, their mechanical grip means that they're so good coming off the corner as well. It looks like the most complete package going into the new season, doesn't it, with Ducati?
It does, and we've got 5 2022 Ducatis on the grid across the factory Ducati team, the Pramac Ducati team, and of course Luca Marini within the VR46 squad. So there's 5 of those on the grid, and of course the 2021 bike finished last year as the class of the field. Pecco Bagnaia winning on it 4 times in the closing 5-6 races of the season. So Enea Bastianini in particular will be a real factor in the early stages of the season if anybody is struggling to get their new packages up to speed. Marc Marquez, I think this is take 3 now. His first start went pretty well, his second far from it, so we'll see if he's nailed it on the third one. But yeah, as you say, it wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility to have 5 or 6 Ducatis starting in the front 2 rows of the grid when we go to Qatar. Marc Marquez gets it much more settled that time, and more to the point, he went directly straight ahead off the line rather than hard left. But yeah, as you say, what Ducati crave in a Grand Prix and what the others fear is when Ducati have track position in a Grand Prix, because they are just so hard to shift from the front of the field. How many times do we see, particularly in Qatar, we saw it last year as the Yamahas and the Suzukis